I'm here with Barry Coatesworth, who is a CISO and independent security advisor, and also one of my favourite people in security. So, Barry, how did you get started in security?
Well, I studied security around 25 years ago when I left the military. And I was looking for a new vocation in life. And I decided that I was really good at security and intelligence and analysis. And prior to that, when I was good at the computer. So I started to do what's called computer security back in about 1996, just as the e-commerce bubble was coming around. And from that one there, I kind of progressed through my career doing kind of technology-related subjects, going all the way through to risk and then through to compliance and through a CISO. But I did learn some lessons along the way, and it was a bit trying at the best of times.
Okay, so lessons learned. What would you like to go back and do differently?
Well, I think one of the main things going back doing differently was that it was predominantly technology focused back 10 or 15 years ago. Now it's more business and business risk. I think going back then is I probably wasn't the best communicator, and I was communicating in technical terms and security terms and things like, quite heavy risk terms, if that makes sense. So it didn't really give people assurance, and it tended to confuse people. So I think going back, I'd probably more business focused than I would technology focused. But I think that was part of evolution of where security has come to anyway, if that makes sense. But if I looked at it in hindsight, I probably would have done it a bit earlier than a bit later in my career in that regard.
And that's something we hear a lot, that actually somebody's very good technically, but they just can't communicate that to the business. So how did you overcome that?
Well, Einstein had a really good quote many years ago when he was talking about quantum physics. He said, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't know what you're talking about. And simply we should treat people ourselves like 6-year-old, although maybe sometimes we should do.
Sometimes we should do.
What he was saying is that you need to understand their language and their terminology. For instance, a CFO, you want to probably talk in spending and budget. For a COO, it's operational efficiency, and for a COO, it's like stakeholder management and shareholders, what shareholders want out of that one then. So understanding your audience and what they want to get out of it is a better way of communicating across to them. As well, talking to business people and technical people, again, slightly different language. So you've got to tailor it slightly, In theory, you're selling it and you're pitching it and you're marketing it slightly. You're actually selling security internally, if that makes sense, to your stakeholders. So you've got to talk in things that they will buy into. And if they're not going to buy into it, they're not going to support you. So again, it's just understanding what the words that they use and the terminology. And if you can reference something that they use and they do, then it makes your life a lot easier than talking about technical insecurity or viruses or APTs or whatever jargon you come out with. It'll lose them the first 30 seconds or so. So things that they understand, that they can fix on, tends to be the best way of doing it.
And in that 25 years, have you seen a difference in what boards understand, what they're asking, what they want to know about?
Well, yes and no. Boards don't really change that. Well, they change quite often, but the people who promoted the boards nowadays hasn't significantly changed. Some of the startups, yes, it depends on the size of the company and its industry. I find things that are highly regulated, yes, they do. Probably also startups as well have more interest in cyber. Some of the other organisations, probably less so, because it's not really on their radar, or something that they've resourced fully enough or skilled themselves a bit, or that one. So probably it's a bit 50-50 with certain boards. They are becoming more savvy, but that's just because it's probably going to be in the Daily Mail or something. And when you get on a Monday morning, is this an issue for us because it's been in the Daily Mail or it's been in the Financial Times or something else that they read? And try and preempt that is also quite good to think of those questions. So they're becoming more savvy, but they're becoming more aware of it, and also becoming more aware of the impact of the business and also to themselves, because nowadays there's impacts as well, both civil and criminal as well, to some degree, data loss on the board for maybe negligence or for due diligence in that regard. So they understand that they've got, shall we say, some skin in the game now, when before it was something that IT does in the basement and that they don't bother them.
That makes sense. I think we hear that a lot. And do you feel that companies in general are set up to fight the risks that we're facing?
Again, this probably all boils down to two key things. It's resources and budget, so resources and cost. Yeah, skills, I think there's a skills gap, but I think that might be a bit of a misnomer, a grey area slightly. While there's certain skills that are missing, I think there's more coming to rotation now, as well as the cost. If I suppose to a degree we was better at budgeting and understanding what was coming the next few years. We could maybe align some of the costs and some of the resources. Most businesses are fairly good at what they do. They do good practice, but I think they still fall far short. Bad things happen to other people, never yourself usually. So when an incident does happen and miraculously money and budget does appear, it's probably a bit too late. And security is more assurance than insurance to a lesser greater degree. So businesses are there, but again, they and rightly so, they don't want to spend money in security when they could spend it on elsewhere, maybe dividends, maybe projects, maybe turning more revenue. But at the same time, they need to show they're doing something. So things do change. More regulation doesn't help. More legislation doesn't tend to help anyway. There's already over legislated and regulated. So I think that they're doing as best they can. And probably that's all they need to really do at this current time. Doing anything more is just probably risk versus reward in that regard, and it's probably maybe not worth the risk in some regards. Depends on the industry, though.
Okay. And one of the questions I hear come up a lot is, how do I sell to a CISO? What do they want to buy, especially for companies that are new and have new products?
Okay, so I get this all the while. I get it through LinkedIn usually. It'll be a supplier suddenly want to connect, and then 5 minutes later they want to sell me what the next best thing that they've got in there. I say if you want to sell to a CISO, it does depend. Most of us who are fairly seasoned, we know quite a lot of the vendors anyway. For a startup, it's quite hard then to really trying to get in and compete with some of the major players. I would say for my one, don't be pushy. Don't try and say, come have a 15-minute meeting with my operations manager next week, because that's not going to happen. Or don't try and put things secretly in your diary, so you wonder where the calendar rights popped up from somewhere. The thing is, don't be pushy. Some of them will probably take a while for you to get traction, but the best thing you can do is probably, like we do in security, is get some sort of executive stakeholder or a business stakeholder within the business that's not related to yours that can help and guide you in that regard. I think some of the startups could do with more NEDs or more CISOs that could help them, shall we say, help understand what they want to sell to or what CISOs are looking for. And I've helped a few people out like that, and a few organisations as well, to understand, it's a viable product, or you're pitching it the wrong way, or that's not going to, or that way of selling it is not going to come across, quite rightly, and you're just going to be dismissed. So for startups, I think you need someone who's a bit seasoned, who knows how to pitch things, because like myself and most CISOs, it's at least 10 or 12 a day through LinkedIn, through email, and a few people ringing it up. Yes, it's 10. I think today itself was about 8 or 9. And I understand they've got targets to reach and they're very persistent, but some of them are just really persistent that it becomes annoying. And if we have budget and we have some things, we will know who to go to, or we'll consider it. But being too pushy will just dismiss you. So it's always good to say, we're here to help you understand what you'd like or may be able to. But if the answer is no or no thank you, then just leave it at that for a while, and then maybe come around a different way. The best way I find is usually it'll be at a conference somewhere, and then approach someone there at a conference or on a stand that's going to come round. And again, not be pushy. So we'll if you're going to attend this conference, we'll be there and we'll have a drink with you, or we'll discuss it what you want. That way, it's more amicable than being pushy and forceful, going for meetings all the while, because most CISOs' diaries are back to back in the best of days. So trying to get any time in any executive diary, never alone a CISO's, is very hard work. Yeah.
And it does feel like a very crowded marketplace at the moment.
Oh, it is. There's the startups coming all over the place. Cyber's one of the big words. The other big words are AI, machine learning. You think that the Terminator is going to take over the world with much AI that marketers have got.
Are they going to?
I think so. I'm not so
Me
sure.
too, I think so too.
Yeah. So the PPI advert gets, I always like that one. With Arnie. But AI is another buzzword. Again, is people being pushy to sell some advanced analytics. And when you question a marketer about artificial intelligence, they don't really know what they're talking about, because it's a keyword that they think they need to use. So things like that that come across that doesn't really help them out, because it's not really artificial intelligence. It's just a different way of doing algorithms or machine learning. So it's a keyword, buzzwords. We all get buzzwords. We've got advanced threats. We get GDPR, I suppose, was still a buzzword. We've got this year it's been AI, machine learning has been the biggest buzzword that people are trying to sell you, I think, as well, or think they need to sell you it for some reason, when probably not really to need to sell things like that. It's probably not on people's radars just yet.
Yeah. And as we look ahead into the next 12 months, what do you think is going to happen with the security industry?
Well, I think it's probably been more of the same for this year, to be honest with you. I think we're still going to see more breaches coming to light. But I think when we say more breaches, I think they've always been there. I think GDPR is going to force people to notify more often. So we're going to see probably a big ramp up from now going forward of new breaches, and maybe historic breaches to a little degree getting reported. And it's not we've had more, it's just because they get more reported. So I think also we're going to get apathy. We're going to get breach apathy. I think we're going to hear them so often that you're not going to be bothered about your information because you've lost it 5 times this week already. So, what's going to happen for that, especially when you realise that you're able to get something out of that data if you've lost it due to distress for GDPR. The big thing for next year is probably going to be resilience. Resilience is a big key word for most regulators, whether it's financial resilience or whether it's cyber resilience or just resilience in IT systems. I think resilience is going to be a big factor looking forward for next year of how we can make things more resilient, either from a telecom perspective or maybe from a cyber perspective. We've had a few big breaches and outages this year, which has got all the regulators going, what are you doing to be more resilient to keep your customers happy or keep part of the infrastructure up and running? So I think resilience is going to be a big word for next year. One of the key words we're going to hear more of anyway.
Very interesting. All right, well, thank you very much for being with me this evening, and I think that's been a really interesting interview. Thank you.
My pleasure.